What is up? This is the Leafs Convo podcast presented by Oakridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. I'm Norm, along with Mike Augello. This is the Leafs Convo Sunday Spectacular Styles. It wasn't a spectacular style kind of game, Mike, in Montreal last night. The Leafs losing 2-1 in overtime. But when neither team scores a goal until the third period, you had to believe that that game could go either way. A late one from the Habs. An OT winner from the old man, Ilya Kovalchuk. Bob's your uncle.
Good morning, Norm. Well, the thing that I think disturbed a lot of Leaf fans, and I saw comments on social media after the game, was the fact that I think the shots were 14-1 in the third period in favor of Montreal. They get the goal from Tavares early in the third period on a really nice play. And then it was, I think it was their attempt to play shutdown hockey. And Sheldon Keefe after the game said, I had no problem with our play defensively because we were playing, I think they were trying to play a typical third period road game where you're just trying to keep your opposition to the outside and not allow quality scoring chances. Well, that didn't happen because Jack Campbell, I thought stood on his head and made a number of really good saves. And in the end, Montreal ties it up late in regulation. You can't just go into a defensive shell, especially when you're a team that doesn't play defense well. And this is just a theme of this team in third periods where if they try to pull the lead, they inevitably fail, and that's a big problem.
This reminds me of when the Maple Leafs were always the underdog against those high-flying Habs teams, mid-2000s to 10 to 12. The Leafs would go into Centre Bell and play their asses off and eke out a win, scratch out a win, scrape out a win. Habs fans would be going nuts, wondering how the hell their beloved team could lose to the lowly Maple Leafs. The roles are flipped, you'd like to think. The Leafs should be the team that wins these games, but the Leafs, for as good as they are statistically, still haven't come together as a group, still can't really figure out what they are or how to apply their prowess and make it dominant.
Well, I mean, you have to look at both ends of the back-to-back and shake your head when it comes to how the Leafs played. And Sheldon Keefe, his comments after both the 5-4 overtime win over Anaheim and the loss yesterday are reflective of that. He looked at the performance that they're up 3-1 in the third period, going into the third period. Blow that lead on a shorthanded goal by Max Jones, and I think it was Henrique that had the power play goal. Then take the lead again on a great play by Jason Spezza, and then blow that lead again with Ryan Miller pulled, and then score the overtime winner with 8 seconds left to go. It's it has to be easier for this team to get victories, and their flaws defensively continue to cause them, I think, have to expend extra energy. And that extra energy may have been the reason why they didn't show up in the third period. So this is something that is a flaw that I don't think can be solved throughout the rest of this season. And it's probably going to be a fatal flaw if and when they get in the playoffs, unless they just continue to play offense and produce 5 goals a game, which I can't remember the last team that was able to do that and win a Stanley Cup. Maybe the Penguins, maybe the Oilers of the 80s, but it's not a formula that works.
This is the Leafs Convo podcast presented by Oakridge Ford, oakridgeford.com. He's Mike. I'm Norm, just looking at youtube.com/the Leafs Convo, the community section. War Daddy, who was Dubas yelling at in that camera shot of him upstairs? Did you see that?
I didn't. I saw a couple shots of him, especially after the game, just sort of like picking up his phone and turning away. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming it's probably somebody on his staff, like Lawrence Gilman or someone like that. But I don't know.
Brandon Van Beek. Am I the only one that's getting tired of seeing a team full of well-paid players put in half-ass efforts? I know that's the belief of a lot of fans based on their eye test. These guys are in their hearts not putting in half-assed efforts. But whatever the effort is, it's not that it's not working. It's just not working well enough.
Yeah, I don't think they're putting in a half an effort or not enough effort. I think that right now, I think the most simple explanation is this team is not good enough. It's not the right combination. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of speed. Last night I thought, on defense, the young combo of Sandin and Liljegren actually played pretty well. I mean, they were limited. They were protected at times. They lumped a ton of minutes on Justin Hall and Jake Muzzin and to a lesser extent Dermott and Barry. But in the situation where right now the top pairing at the beginning of the season, Cody Ceci and Morgan Riley are out and could be out for the rest of the year, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. I mean, their defense played okay against Montreal, but Montreal is not exactly the flying Frenchman of the '70s. Shea Weber was out. I mean, Jonathan Drouin it was his first game after missing, I think, almost half a season. So there's not a lot of scoring there, and they played a low event game, as they call them, and allowed them to tie the game with a little under 3 minutes left to go in regulation, and blew a point. And that point could be the difference between them making and missing the playoffs.
Alan Phrase, my issue is the third periods. It's a friggin' joke. Alan, you're not alone in that sentiment. Maciej Kakowski, a constant contributor to community. YouTube.com/The Leafs Convo. This team desperately needs another top 4 veteran defenseman, someone similar to Muzzin.
Well, this is the situation. I mean, Chris Johnston and Elliot Friedman talked about it on the headlines yesterday. Right now, Kyle Dubas is sort of in a holding pattern regarding going out and trying to acquire a defenseman at the deadline, simply because Riley has to have the progress of his fractured foot checked by the medical staff next week. Cody Ceci has a high ankle sprain. He will be out at least a month, and they will review his injury in a month. That would be probably the early second week of March. If either one of them they believe will not be back for the rest of the regular season, then they will be placed. They are already placed on long-term injury, but they will stay on long-term injury for the rest of the year, and Dubas will be able to go out and spend the money under the cap to acquire a defenseman, probably a rental. If they can come back, then he can't do that. And then he has to make a trade where he would trade a Kapanen or a Janssen or a Kerfoot to get a defenseman. That type of deal is tougher. You might be able to get a rental defenseman relatively cheap, and that would be a sort of a plug. But I think Dubas wants to make a move that is long lasting. Those deals are tough before the deadline. So right now he's in a holding pattern to see, whether he's going to have the money to work with because of the injuries to either Ceci or Riley. And if he doesn't, then he's going to have to get inventive.
Seems like there's going to be just as much activity in the boardroom as there will be at Leafs practice, attempting to reconfigure or configure properly the team that we all hope will rise to another level, get into the playoffs, and make some magic happen. Because no matter where the Leafs are on the pecking order right now, it is high time that happens. Whether the favorite in a playoff series or the underdog, the expectations are great on this Maple Leafs team. If you think they aren't, you're kidding yourself. Dean Johnson brings up a great point and a huge question that, I don't know if we're avoiding it or the emphasis is just so highly placed on this team's dynamic offensive talent because there's a glut of it up top. Anyone notice how the Leafs secondary scoring has dried up lately? Feels like it, Mike. Statistically, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we don't see a lot of the guys from the third or the fourth lines getting hot other than Jason Spezza. And I almost feel like when Jason Spezza gets hot, you take it, you run with it, but you want him to cool down a little bit because you're going to need him to be a real steady force down the line.
Yeah, I mean, Kapanen, I think, has 4 goals in his last 31 games, something like that. Pierre Engvall, I think, has 8 goals, but he hasn't scored any recently. I mean, the fourth line is I think, when Gauthier is the center, it's an offensive black hole. I mean, I don't know why he's in the lineup. I continue to say that their best lineup is with him up in the press box. A guy like Mason, Mason Marchment. No, I mean, I'm sorry. A guy like Mason Marchment, who scored 5 goals in 2 games with the Marlies on the weekend, should be up playing on the wing. And right now they have 2 potential centers, Kerfoot and Engvall, playing the wing. It's very easy to shift one of them to the middle and sit Gauthier and play, a winger like, if you want more jam, another guy like Marchment, or if you want more offense, a guy like Jeremy Bracco. Playing them up in the top 12 with the Leafs, but for some reason they have this love affair with Freddie Gauthier and the 6 minutes in which he does absolutely nothing.
A nice mix of jam type players, whether playing together or just cast throughout the lineup, would be Kyle Clifford, Kasperi Kapanen, Zach Hyman, and Mason Marchment. Guys who you'd expect to play at a higher tempo when the chips are down. And it's a guy like Kapanen, I think his game, and this is, he seems, again, he's just doesn't seem to be able to get too comfortable. It's hard when you have so much defensive talent ahead of you, eating up so much of the offense. But Kapanen is a feisty dude. Just some thoughts there on, a collection of in-house pushback type of players who could, if you point to the four of them and say, you're the guys who are going to be doing that. Oh, we're going to need you to be offensive and smart and defensively sound. But yeah, go out there and stir it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think Kapanen is immensely talented. That's why I think a number of teams are interested in him. He's got top level speed, and that's unique still in this league. But for not to make a pun here, there is a lack of finish there. I think that I think he's a 20-goal scorer. I think he doesn't belong on the third line. I think he probably belongs in the top six. But when you have Nylander and Marner, you're not going to play in the top six, and he can't play left wing. That's why eventually it could be Captain that gets moved out either at the deadline or over the summer. And that's not because he's having some issue, off the ice or missing practices. I think it's just a practicality of the fact that they've got two players locked up for 6 years in Nylander and Marner, who are top six right wingers, and there might not be any room for Kasperi Kapanen.
So the Leafs' next game is Tuesday. The Arizona Coyotes are in London today, by the way, running a peewee workout, making sure they get their mitts on some of the top 11 and 12-year-olds in the region.
I would hate to be the owner of the Arizona Coyotes when that ruling comes down. $250,000 per offense. And Darren Drager said yesterday it was 20 instances of them practicing or putting junior players or USHL players through their paces. That is going to be a nice big fine.
Monolithically, it's the team that's getting destroyed, and it's the team that is the target here for the league, it seems, and fans' reaction. And a lot of fans really don't know what to think here because this is kind of above their understanding of what the hell all of this means. But where does John Chayka, the boy wonder, fit into this? Is he complicit with this? Is he orchestrating this? Is this part of his plan? And I'm not saying it is. I'm just wondering.
I would have to think it is. I mean, I can't imagine that something that they're implementing in terms of their scouting is above the pay grade of the general manager of the team. I mean, so I would have to think that he's partially or primarily culpable in this. And I mean, when this comes down, I mean, could this be like the Houston Astros situation in baseball where he gets suspended or he gets fined or he gets fired because of it? I don't know. I mean, I don't, I'm going to wait till the ruling, but it is curious. And I would think that Chaika is somehow involved.
Any last words on what you're expecting from the Leafs and Coyotes on Tuesday, other than the Leafs probably having a lead going into the third period and having to beg, hope, and pray and steal and borrow to hold on to that lead or potentially lose it and maybe win the game in overtime? Last word to you.
Well, I mean, the Coyotes are a really good defensive club, but they've slipped recently because they've lost their number one, Darcy Kemper. They've been playing Aranta and Aiden Hill in goal, so it'll be easier to score against them than it's been earlier in the season. That being said, that was the case with Anaheim. Their offense was sort of challenged, and they're a little bit better defensively than they are offensively, and we saw that they could score goals against the Leafs. So the Leafs are going to have to find an answer to their third period problems. And if they overlook some of the players on Arizona and try to play in a defensive shell in the final 20 minutes, then we'll probably see the same results that we saw in the last couple of games.
Mike, we can't solve this team's woes. We can only hope for the best and talk about the results. Folks, thank you so much for all of your support. YouTube.com/The Leafs Convo. Like, subscribe, and vote so much more Convo in the days and weeks and months ahead as the trade deadline approaches. And then the playoffs, and then that long Leafs playoff run we know they're going to go on. For Mike, I'm Norm. We're out.